Welcome back to Simbright Fashion Academy YouTube channel for another interesting tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be teaching you how to sew this flared skirt with front buttons as well as the top as well. So here you can see this beautiful dress. It has two side pockets, it has a center front on the skirt piece, and this is actually trending. So I'll be teaching you the tips and tricks to sewing this beautiful flared skirt and its top. So this is what I came out with. You can see the buttons are all over everywhere. It's actually a crop top for this top and a flared skirt for the skirt. Okay, so you can see what we got right here. I'm so proud of this dress. It looks so beautiful and gorgeous, and you can use it for any occasion of your choice. I didn't have a complete button anyway, so that is why I was unable to place my buttons on the skirt piece completely. So if this is what you want to learn in this class, I will encourage you to stay till the end of this tutorial to learn the tips and tricks to making this flared dress. So right here you can see I used a crepe fabric. You can use cotton fabric, you can use crepe fabric for this tutorial. So this particular crepe fabric, I used 3.5 yards for the whole project, but for the skirt piece I am going to use 2 yards for the skirt piece. So I decided to draft the skirt pattern. In the skirt pattern right now, so from center front I took the button allowance of 2.5 inches. So you are going to mark from the front of your paper. 2.5 inches is going to be our button allowance for the skirt. So I'm going to fold in this button allowance. So you just go ahead and fold 2.5 inches button allowance inwards, because we are going to use this pattern to draft both the center front and the center back. So here is my center front. We are going to draft the center front first. So I'm going to place my tape. 2 inches is my band, so I took away 2 inches and mark my hip height. So my hip height is 9.5. I mark 9.5, and the next is the full length of this dress. So I'm going to add up because my paper is not enough, but I'm going to take my full length at 38 inches. So but that will be after drafting. I will add up the inches on my fabric. So now I'm going to rule my lines across my hip line and the full length. So I'm just using the full length of this paper just to show the full length of this skirt. So here is the waistline, and here is my hip line, and this is the full length. So on the waistline I'm going to take my waist circumference divided by 4. So my waist circumference divided by 4 is 9.5. I marked it. My hip circumference divided by 4 is 12 inches. I marked it. So I'm going to connect from the waistline right now to the hip line. So I'm going to connect it right now. So after connecting from the waist to the hip, I'm going to place what I have on the hip line. I'll just take it straight to the full length line. So I'm going to connect a straight line from the hip line to the full length right away. So right here I have my skirt pattern which I want to work with. So this particular skirt, we are going to drag both our pocket piece on this pattern, then we are also going to slash and spread to get our flared skirt. So this is my front piece, and I'm going to draft center front and center back here. So this is front and back piece of this skirt. We are drafting on one pattern. I believe you understand. So we are working on the front pattern now. So I'm going to take the measurement of my pocket at 6.5 inches, and I'm going to go in by 1.5 inches for my pocket. So I'm going to connect it from that 1.5 to the 6 inches on the 6.5 inches on the side. So the next thing I'm going to do is to place my tape and take the midpoint of that line of the pocket. So here is the midpoint. So I will keep my ruler diagonally or perpendicularly. I'm going to measure 2.5 inches. So I measure 2.5 inches and connected like a triangle to the waistline, and I kept my ruler straight, okay, and measure 2.5 inches. Then connected back to the midline following the slanted line. So you can make any shape of this part, any shape you want. So this is where my pocket is going to be. So whatever shape you want to create at that point, just go ahead and create it. So you can even increase that to 3 inches if you want, if you don't want to use 2.5 inches. So here you have to trace this pattern out. So I've traced it out and you can see me cutting it out. So we are going to use it to cut out the piece of fabric that will replace that pocket piece. So I place it inside the pattern to be sure is measuring up very well. So now I'm going to take the midpoint of my hip. So whatever I have, I'll take the midpoint of the full length. I want to connect my straight line from the full length to the hip and to the waistline. So that is going to serve as my slash line. So like I said, we are going to slash and spread this pattern to be able to get that flay effect. So I'll just go ahead right now and I'm going to cut out the skirt. So I just cut out the skirt and I want you to watch how I'm cutting it. Remember, we have the center front and center back. So now I'm going to slash and spread. So I'm going to cut through that line, but I'm not going to cut out everything. So just cut and remain a little bit so you will be able to slash and spread. So this is how I'm going to slash and spread it. I'll place this pattern on top of my paper. So I'll show you how on top of my fabric, sorry. So I'm going to bring in my fabric. Like I said, I'm using 2 inches, 2 yards for the fabric. The fabric is 2 yards. So I'll just place the 2 yards into 2, and the folded edge, I'm going to place my pattern piece. So we are cutting the center back first. Okay, so we'll cut the center back first. So I'm going to place this pattern. You can see I placed the center front area straight at the center front piece and I slashed only the side. So I'm going to take my time right now to secure with my pin. So from the top of my fabric, I came down like 4 inches. So by the time 3 or 4 inches, by the time I slash the other side, it will have a curvy part at that point. So you'll be able to have enough space on the fabric. So I added 1/2 inch on the center back. Remember, we are going to join the center back. So you can see I left about 1/2 inch. So now I'm adding 1/2 inch on the waistline. Then from the side of the pepper, I'm going to add 1 inch. That 1 inch I'm adding on the side of the pepper now will be my stitching allowance. So I added 1 inch at that point. So the next thing I'm going to do now, after adding the 1 inch, I'm going to connect that part like an A line. But before you connect on like an A line, you have to be sure that you have opened up your slash and spread to the extent you want. So now I'm going to show you how you are going to open up your slash and spread. So you can see how I kept the center front, center back area straight. So I'm going to take the opening of my slash and spread. I'm using 8 inches. So you can use 8, 5, 6, 7, 8 inches. So, but I use 8 inches right here. So you can see where I placed my tape. I placed 2 inches above. Remember, it has a band. Then I'm taking 38 inches as the length of this skirt. So I'm going to rotate it from that point. Just hold it down on that point at that 2 inches and you keep marking 38 inches. That was what I did, and connected my chalk lines to meet the A line on the side. So I believe you understand this slash and spread method. So this saves your fabric a little more than trying to use draft only on fabric. So here I've connected the length of my flay. Then I connected it to the A line. So this is what you are going to have. Please don't ignore the second line. That was an error. So the other line is the actual length of this skirt. So this is what you expected to have right now. So the next thing we are going to do now is to start cutting it out. So I'm going to cut it out on the A line part. Remember, my slash and spread in between was 8 inches. So if you want to make it smaller, just go back, and if you want bigger, you go front from that 8 inches. So I've cut out my pattern now. So I'm going to open up that center back. Remember, I told you I added 1/2 inch. So that half an inch is just to stitch the center back, as you can see. So after cutting, the back piece is ready. So I'm going to take off my pattern, and we are going to also use this pattern to cut out the front. But when cutting the front right now, we are going to make a little adjustment, and I'll be showing you the adjustment we are going to make right here. So now this is the fabric for the back. So for the front piece right away, I'm going to open up that button allowance, but before I do that, I'm going to first cut out the side piece. So please don't throw that side piece. We'll use it to construct the pocket, so just make sure you keep it. Then you open your button allowance. So here is my button allowance. So I will show you how to fold that part to create that front button. So here I'm going to also slash and spread on my fabric. So I'll just go ahead to grab my fabric. So I'm going to also place it on fold. The remaining part of the 2 yards I'm using, I'll place it on fold again. So once I place it on fold, I'm going to bring my pattern once again, and I'm going to place my pattern. So I'm spreading everything open right now, and I'm going to, you can see how I placed it. So next is to secure with my pin, and the slash and spread, I used 8 inches between the gaps. So I used 8 inches. You can see it, I'm measuring it 8 inches. So now I'm going to place my tape to take the measurement of the full length of the back piece. So the same way I did for the front, I added 1 inch on the side and half an inch on top for stitching the band. So I'm going to connect those lines, and then I'm going to take the length of this dress. The skirt piece length is 38, so I place my tape from 2 inches for the band and measure 38 inches all around. So I mark my 38 inches just like I marked for the front. I'm going to mark it all through to determine the length of this skirt. So I'll keep marking it until I get to the end of the fabric. So after marking that part, the next thing we are going to do is to add or mark from that 1 inch. Just mark from the 1 inch an A line to meet up with the length of that skirt, just like exactly what we did at the front. That is what at the back, that is what we are going to do at the front. So after you have added that 1 inch, it's serving as a guide for us. We are now going to take half an inch. This is the front piece of this skirt. Please, I want you to pay attention to this part. I now added half an inch, and I'm going to follow the half an inch for the pocket stitching. So that is the pocket stitching for the front. So we are going to cut through the half an inch and make a notch at the pocket piece. So this is what I expect you to have at the end of the day, and this is the full cutting of this front piece. So we are going to cut out these pieces right now, and then we'll jump into the sewing tutorial proper. So I believe you have a full view of how this skirt piece for the front is going to look like. So now I'm going to cut right away. I'm going to cut through that half an inch, okay? I now cut through the half an inch and now took my cutting all the way to the hem. So once I get to the hem, I start to cut the length of the skirt, as you can see. So I use this method of slash and spread because it saves fabric a lot. So you don't need to start laying your flay and all that. It is going to waste your fabric. So here I cut through the half an inch, and then I'm going to open up the folded edge. Make sure you make a notch on the button allowance on the front, on the up, and also make a notch of the 2.5 inch button allowance below. Then you can proceed to cut the center front because it's going to carry buttons at the front. So here I'm done cutting my pattern pieces. So I made a notch at where the pocket is going to start. Don't forget to make that notch. It's going to be very helpful at the end of the day. So now I brought a folded fabric of 10 inches by 10 inches. My fabric is folded and it is 10 inches width and 10 inches length. So I want you to also pay attention to how I'm going to slant this fabric to create the pocket. So the original video has a slanted pocket and this is how you go about it. You have to match it up first on the pocket. You can see how I matched it to align on the pocket. And I'm going to slant it in like that. Okay, so I'll slant it in like that. So I'm going to take the measurement of 1.5 inch before I stop. So I'll keep slanting it. Once it's 1.5 inches, I'll just stop. So I think it's up to 1.5 inches. So you are going to see why we have to make it up to that 1.5 inches. So I measure 1.5 inches all through and I'm okay with it. So at that point of 1.5 inches, I'm going to secure with my pin. Then we'll begin to create the pocket. So we'll start taking the measurement of the pocket right away. So I bring back that pieces I cut off. You have to bring back the pieces you cut off and just match it up from where you cut it off. So after matching it out from where you cut it off, then I will take 1/2 inch upwards. That is for seam allowance. I'll take 1/2 inch and then I'm going to take 1 inch. Okay, I'll take 1 inch like that. So I'm pretending as if that part is going to have a seam allowance. So I'm going to connect it to meet up with the A line once again. So this is just very simple. Just make sure you follow this tutorial, you will get it. So you can secure that pocket with pins so it does not move. So now you can see how I connected it. I have to slow down on this part so you'll be able to understand what I'm doing. So I'm going to cut off the 1 inch seam allowance to knotting on the hip and then cut off the 1/2 inch seam allowance on top. So that is how the pocket is going to be. So I'll now take off that pieces. Then I'm going to open up the pocket. The upper piece, you lift it up, the upper piece, and align that upper piece with the front pocket and cut out the pieces. So I aligned it with the front pocket and cut out the pieces. That is the upper layer of that pocket, while the lower layer remains the same. So the upper layer is going to be stitched on the pocket, the flare pocket itself. So I take it off and I secure with my pin. So right now we are going to create this pocket now. So this pocket, I'm going to slant it in. So I just want you to watch the video and do whatever I do. It's actually self-explanatory, so you can see what I'm doing. So if you're working on this pocket, this is how to go about it. You just connect it to the beginning of that slant piece. So you connect it to the width of the pocket. So this is where I'm going to put my hand for the pocket. So I'll just take my time now to cut out the shape of this pocket. So I'll just go ahead and cut out the shape. So I cut out the shape of this pocket and this is what the pocket looks like. So I'm going to use this piece to cut the other piece. So, and I want you to also see how I'm going to use it to cut the other piece. So I'm going to bring back my pattern 2, and then I'm going to place this pocket. I'll place it on top of another fabric on fold. So I just want you to see how I'm doing that. So I place it on top like this, and then I'm going to secure with my pin and go ahead to trace the shape of the former pocket I cut and cut it out. So you can see how I'm cutting it out. So I'm taking the shape like that, and I'll keep cutting it, as you can see. So I just make sure you get all the shapes. Here I've cut it out and I have all the shapes, but remember that the inner, the other side we cut it is shorter than the longer side. So I fold in the longer sides and pick up the one of the pieces, so we'll be able to cut out the front piece of the pocket. I believe you understand. So you lift it up and just cut only one piece, only one piece, so the both of them looks the same. So you can see what I did right here. So now I'm going to place the pockets. You can see how I placed it right now. So you can see one is longer and one is shorter. So I just place it in the opposite direction so they will look the same, because it's going to the right and left pockets. Can you see that? So I'm going to keep the pocket aside, then we'll go over to the pocket design. So you can see I added my 1/2 inch all around and I hasted that pocket design. So I'm going to place it right side to right side. I have 4 pieces of it. Then I'm going to stitch at 1/2 inch. So I'm stitching at 1/2 inch and I'll leave the side on the pocket open. So after stitching, just cut out the sharp edges so you'll be able to turn that piece. So that is what I'm doing right there, cutting out the side edges. So I'm going to open it up this way. So I'll just turn it to the right direction very carefully. Make sure you bring out all the edges. So that is exactly what I'm doing here. So I've given it a good press and you are going to trim out this excess. So after trimming out this excess, we will now go over to attach this to the front piece of the skirt. So I break the front piece of the skirt and fit in to be sure I have that piece exactly. So I'm going to take off my pattern right now, then spread my skirt open so we'll be able to attach that part right away. So I'm going to fold the bottom piece, but the first thing we'll just do is to stitch this part before we go over to the bottom piece. So you secure it with your pin. I'll also do the same on the other side. Then I'm going to stitch at 1/2 inch. So you can see how I'm placing it by the side of that pocket piece. So I'll secure with my pin and go over to the machine to stitch at 1/2 inch. So after stitching, you can see that design is attached to the front piece of the skirt. So I'll bring my pocket. So you can see how I'm pushing in the pocket to match that part that we cut first. So I want you to pay more than the usual attention to understand this part. So you can see how I'm matching it and you can see the excess, the 1 inch we had. So now I'll go over to sew that piece together. So I will just lift that piece up, so, and turn it to the other direction. So we need to stitch it to the other direction. So I'll secure with my pin and I'll go over to the machine to stitch, and it will lay like this for us. I believe you understand it. So by the time I go over to stitch, you will understand what I'm doing here. So I'm done stitching and I'm going to flip all my seams. I left 1/2 inch up and down. Please remember we are going to stitch the down pocket. So I'm going to top stitch after the 1/2 inch I left, and I'll stop after the 1/2 inch before the 1/2 inch on the down piece. So you can see what I have after ironing. So I'll bring in the down piece of the pocket right now. So I'm going to align them on their edges. You can see the straight edge. I'll just align it on that part like that. So I'll align it, and then I'm going to secure with my pin. So I'm going to secure it with my pin like this. So as you are working on this project, just follow this video and do exactly what I did. You can see I left half an inch up and down. Don't forget to leave the half an inch. We will lift the skirt piece and stitch from the half an inch to round up the pocket. So I'm going to stitch round right now. So on my machine, so I lift up the skirt, and the half an inch I left, I use it to sew the pocket. So here I'm sewing the pocket all around. Later I'm going to weave this pocket. So I'll weave the inside of the pocket, as you can see. So the half an inch I left, you can see it there. I kept emphasizing it because that is what you use to sew the pocket. So after sewing the pocket, you can see what we have. So that is the pocket for us, and I've stitched the half an inch inwards. So I also did the same. I'm going to do the same for the right side. So I will demonstrate it once again so you'll be able to understand it once again. So you just go ahead and place that part that matches. Make sure you place it downwards when you are placing. You can see it's pointing downwards. So I'm going to stitch and then top stitch. So after top stitching, this is what I got. I'll bring in the other one and align them at those edges. Can you see that? You align them at those edges. Then lift up the half an inch and stitch all around. So here the two pockets are ready. So I'm going to sew the button allowance. So I'll fold in half an inch and then 1 inch to the point I notched. I'll fold in half an inch and 1 inch. So after sewing, I gave it a good press, and this is what I got. So that is the button allowance. So I just hold down the button as if I've sewn my button. So we'll be able to sew the back piece of the skirt to it. So I secure my pins from top to bottom. Then I'm going to place the back piece of the skirt. So but before we place it, make sure you stitch half an inch for the center back. So I'm done with that, and I gave it a good press. So I'm going to lay it right side to right side, the both skirts, and I'm going to stitch the sides at half an inch. So after stitching the sides, this is what I got. You can see my pocket. So make sure you match them up very well. So the next thing I'm going to do is to take the measurement of my round waist on the skirt. So whatever I got, my round waist there, I got about 40 inches, including the button allowance. So now I'm going to sew my band. So I hasted my band, and the width of my band here is 5 inches. So the length of my band is 42 inches. I just added 2 inches to the 40 inches I measured on my waist. So I'm going to place it. You can see how I'm placing it. So I'm going to sew half an inch on the first layer of the band. I'm going to take it all around from the beginning. I'll sew round. So this is what I have. Then I'm going to tuck in half an inch and top stitch on top of it. Of course, you know how to go about your band. So after sewing the band, you can see what the band looks like. It's actually looking very beautiful. So the next thing we are going to do is to sew our buttons. So I'm going to sew my buttons right now. Then I will hem the down part of this skirt. And this is how we come to the end of this tutorial. I believe this class was helpful to you. So now I'm going to show you how to sew the upper piece of this dress in the next tutorial. Please don't forget to click on the link below. I will be dropping the link on how to make the top on the description box below. So you can see the buttons. I stitched my buttons completely. Okay, I did not make any buttonhole from this point. I left 8 inches, okay, to make my buttonhole. So that is how I'll come to the end of this tutorial. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.